She reached for him before she was fully awake. That was the thing about loving someone for as long as she had loved Min Kong. Her hand moved across the sheets toward the warmth beside her the way it had done 1,000 mornings in another life. Automatic. Certain. Already home before she had even opened her eyes. Then her fingers found a shoulder that was not his. She went completely still. And then everything came back. Not slowly. Not in pieces. All at once, flashing across her eyes. The advice from Amara to live a little because she looked like she was going through the exact same pain all over again. The Uber moving through Victoria Island, Lagos. The restaurant. The laughter she had forced herself into because she was tired of being sad. The drinks that had come one after another because the alternative was sitting with feelings she had been sitting with for over a year, and she was exhausted. The unanswered call glowing on her phone screen that she had turned face down on the table without a word. Min. She sat up slowly. The room was unfamiliar. The ceiling was unfamiliar. The breathing of the man beside her was unfamiliar, like someone you have no history with, no language with, no reason to have woken up next to. He stirred, opened his eyes, looked at her with an expression that was still half asleep and entirely unaware of the storm happening inside her chest. "Hey," he said. "You okay?" She was already reaching for her clothes. "I'm fine," she replied. "Go back to sleep." She moved to the bathroom before he could say another word, closed the door behind her, ran the cold tap, put both hands on the edge of the sink and looked at herself in the mirror for a long, quiet, honest moment. She looked like a woman who had made a decision she already regretted. But before we go any further, before any of this makes the kind of sense it needs to make, you need to understand how Nella Williams got here. Because 9 months before this morning, she had made a decision. A real one. After the accident, she had decided to take things with Min seriously. To try. To show up. To give what they had rebuilt and sold the room it needed to become something real. So how did she end up here? In another man's bed. Welcome to Afro-Korean Love Stories. In today's episode, we bring you betrayals, fated reunions, quarrels, bonds, and dark romance. If you're just joining us for the first time, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on your notification bell so you don't miss out on new story drops. Let me know in the comments which city you're watching from. I want to see how far these amazing stories have traveled. Now hold on to your seats as we take a deep dive into this amazing story. The Nello collection launched on a Thursday evening 6 weeks after Nello flew home from Seoul. By Friday morning, the website had crashed twice. Every item was gone. Her DMs were a wall of noise she could not see the bottom of. Women from Lagos to London to Atlanta were wearing her name like it meant something. Because it did. She sat on her kitchen floor at midnight surrounded by packaging and tissue paper and let herself cry. Not from sadness. From the particular overwhelm of something you built in the dark finally finding its light. All those 2 a.m. nights. All those lonely restocks. All those moments of almost giving up that she had pushed through on nothing but stubbornness and vision. None of it was wasted. Amara arrived at her door at 12:30 a.m. with wine and chin and screamed so loud the neighbor knocked on the wall. At 1:17 a.m., her phone lit up. Min. I saw. I told you. She stared at the message for a long moment, sitting on her kitchen floor, surrounded by the physical evidence of everything she had built. She thought about the hospital room, the porridge from Insadong, the hotel pavement in Seoul where she had placed her hand on his chest and told him she was not closing the door. She typed back, I know. I wish you were here. His response came 4 minutes later. Soon. She held her phone and looked at that word and let herself believe it the way you let yourself believe things when you are sitting in the middle of your greatest achievement and the person you love most is on the other side of the world. Soon. He came 3 weeks later. She did not expect it. She had learned not to expect things from Min that his world made difficult to give. So when Amara called her on a Tuesday afternoon with a voice performing casualness very unconvincingly and said, so funny thing. Nello had genuinely not been prepared. Min had landed in Lagos the night before. Presidential suite at a 5-star hotel in Ikoyi. 4 of his men with him. He had not announced himself. Had not asked permission. He had simply come. She sat with that for 45 seconds before she called him. He picked up on the first ring. You're in Lagos, she said. I am, he replied. You didn't tell me you were coming. I wanted to see if you'd be happy or angry first. She was standing in the middle of her studio, surrounded by fabric and sketches and the organized chaos of a brand mid-momentum. She looked at the ceiling. Which one am I? She asked. A pause. Then that particular warmth in his voice he kept only for her. You called me within the hour. So, I think we both know. She closed her eyes. She was happy. Completely and inconveniently happy in a way that made her immediately suspicious of herself. I'll send you the address, then hung up before her face could make any further decisions without her. He stayed 2 weeks. 2 weeks of Minjun Kong in Lagos, and if Nello had thought seeing him in Seoul was complicated, nothing had prepared her for what it felt like to have him in her world. Her city, her streets, her life exactly as she had built it without him. He came to her studio on the second day. Stood in the doorway in a dark shirt and dark trousers, looking completely out of place among the fabric rolls and mood boards and packaging supplies, and somehow more present than anyone who had ever stood in that room. He walked slowly around the space, stopped in front of the wall where she had pinned her first lookbook photos beside the screenshots of the sold-out notification and the crashed website and the first ever Nello order receipt. He looked at it for a long time. You built all of this, he said. Not a question. Every piece, she responded. He turned to look at her. That look. The one she had no adequate defense for. I'm proud of you, he said quietly. I need you to know that. She held his gaze. I know, she said softly. He crossed the room slowly, stopped in front of her. Close. That familiar nearness that always made the air between them feel different from the air anywhere else. He reached up and tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. Gentle. Deliberate. I missed you, he said. She looked up at him. You could have said that from Seoul. It doesn't mean the same thing from Seoul. She held his gaze for a long moment. Then, no, she said softly. It doesn't. Those 2 weeks were everything she had forgotten they could be. He moved through Lagos like he was genuinely trying to understand it. Her Lagos, not just any Lagos. He let her show him things. Her favorite suya spot on a Friday night with the smoke rising and the city loud around them. The fabric market in Balagan where she sourced her local materials, the noise and color and beautiful chaos of it. The view from her apartment rooftop at sunset when Lagos turned amber and everything felt possible. He was present in a way he had rarely been in Seoul. No disappearances. No conversations that stopped when she walked in. Just him and her and Lagos and something between them that felt dangerously, beautifully like a second chance actually becoming something real. On his last night, she made dinner. Her mother's recipe. Simple and warm and entirely hers. They ate on her rooftop with the city below them doing what Lagos does at night, and she looked at him across the small table and thought, this is what I wanted. This exact thing. This is what I was always asking for. He reached across the table and took her hand. I don't want to go back, he said. She looked at him steadily. Then don't. He held her gaze. Something moved through his face. Honest and heavy. You know I have to, he said. She nodded slowly. Because she did know. She had always known. The question was never whether he would leave. The question was always what he would do after. He flew back to Seoul on a Sunday morning. She stood in her apartment after his car pulled away and held herself very still and quiet for a moment. Then she went back to work, because that was what Nella Williams did. And somewhere in the back of her mind, in the part she was not ready to listen to yet, a small and careful voice said soon and waited to see if this time it would mean something different. The first trip to Seoul was 3 months after he left Lagos. She had a supplier meeting already scheduled, Park J1, the same dealer she had met on that rainy night that had started everything. New fabrics, new season, new collection taking shape in her head that she could not wait to get her hands on. The business reason was real and legitimate, and she told herself that was the only reason she was going. She was lying to herself, and she knew it. She landed on a Wednesday evening. Minjun's car was waiting at the airport. She had not asked him to send it. He had simply known her flight and done it anyway, the way he did things. Quietly, efficiently, without announcement. She smiled at the driver and got in and looked out the window at Seoul doing its thing in the early evening light and let herself feel the small warmth of being somewhere that knew her name.
He took her to dinner that night.
The same small restaurant in Buckshin. Same older woman. Same ceramic teacups brought without being asked. Same amber candlelight that made everything feel more honest than it probably should. They talked for 3 hours. About the brand. About Lagos. About the new collection and what she was hoping to find at the supplier meeting. About his world in the careful, measured way he shared it. Enough to feel like inclusion, never quite enough to feel like full access. She noticed that. Filed it away. Said nothing. Because it was the first visit and she was still warm from Lagos and the rooftop dinner and the 2 weeks of him being everything she had asked him to be. She was not ready to pick at anything yet. She flew home 4 days later with beautiful fabric samples and a full heart and a voice in her head that said, "This is working.
Give it time."
He came to Lagos. He is trying. She gave it time. The second trip was 3 months after that. 6 months since Lagos. 6 months of messages and calls, and the particular intimacy of two people trying to maintain something real across a distance that never gets easier no matter how much you love each other. She noticed things this time that she had not let herself notice the first visit. The way his phone never fully disappeared. The way certain hours of certain evenings he became unreachable without explanation and reappeared later with an apology that was genuine but never detailed. The way Seoul felt like his world in a way Lagos had never felt like hers when he was there, because in Lagos he had shown up for her. Here she was always navigating the edges of a life. She was not fully inside. She did not say any of this on the second trip. She told herself she was being patient. That patience was what this required. That he had come to Lagos, and that meant something and she needed to stop measuring and just trust. She flew home again. New fabrics. Full suitcase. Slightly less full heart. She did not tell Amara that part. It was somewhere between the second and third trip that the thing she had been refusing to name finally named itself. She was packaging orders at midnight. A Tuesday, nothing special about it, when her phone rang. Min-jun. She picked up immediately the way she always did, because she was always available for him. Always had been. They talked for 40 minutes. It was a good call. Warm and easy the way their best conversations always were. He made her laugh twice. She told him about a difficult supplier negotiation she had won that week, and he said, "Of course you did," with that quiet certainty that made her feel seen in a way nothing else quite matched. When she hung up, she sat for a moment in the middle of her studio floor surrounded by Nello packaging and looked at the 4 walls of the life she had built and realized something that sat in her chest like a stone. She was always here, and he was always there. And the calls were warm and the messages were consistent, and the love was real. She never doubted the love, but love was not the same thing as effort. Love was not the same thing as showing up. Love was not the same thing as a man booking a flight to the city where the woman he claimed he didn't want to lose was building her entire world without him. He had come once. Once in 9 months. She had crossed that ocean 3 times. She put her phone face down on the studio floor and went back to packaging and did not cry because she was a woman who had survived worse than this, and crying at midnight over a man who loved her but couldn't seem to prioritize her was not something she had time for. But the stone in her chest did not move. It just settled deeper. The third trip to Seoul was different from the moment she landed. She was tired in a way that had nothing to do with the flight. The kind of tired that lives behind your eyes and follows you into rooms and sits beside you at dinner tables and does not respond to sleep. Min-jun noticed immediately. He always noticed. "You're quiet," he said. They were in his car, moving through Seoul, the city sliding past the windows in its usual indifferent beauty. "I'm fine," she said. He glanced at her sideways. "Nello." She looked at him. And something in the way he said her name, that particular way, low and certain, like her name in his mouth was its own complete sentence, almost made her let it go. Almost made her file it back under patience and trust and give it more time. Almost. "When are you coming to Lagos?" she said. The question landed quietly. No accusation in her voice. Just the question. Clean and direct the way she did everything. He was quiet for a moment. "I've been trying to manage some things." Min-jun. She said his name the way he had just said hers. "When are you coming to Lagos?" He exhaled slowly. It's complicated right now. The business. It's always the business, she said. Still quiet. Still no anger in it. Just truth. I have been on this plane 3 times. 3 times in 9 months. And I have never once complained about that because I understand your world and I understand what it demands. But I need you to understand something. She turned to look at him fully. I can see that you love me, she said. I have never doubted that. But love without effort starts to feel like nothing after a while. And right now, she paused, swallowed. Right now it is starting to feel like before. And I cannot do before again. I won't. The car was quiet. Seoul moved past the windows. Minjun's jaw was tight. Not from anger. From the specific tension of a man hearing something true that he does not have an immediate answer for. I hear you, he said finally. I need more than that. He looked at her. Something shifted in his eyes. I'm going to do better, he said. I promise you. She held his gaze for a long moment. She had heard that before. Not from him, specifically, but from this situation. From this dynamic. From the particular place, they kept returning to where he acknowledged the problem and promised the solution, and then the days became weeks, and the weeks became months, and nothing materially changed because his world did not pause for promises made in cars on Seoul nights. She nodded slowly. Okay, she said. She turned back to the window, and the stone in her chest, the one that had been settling deeper since that midnight packaging session, shifted slightly. Not gone, just repositioned. Into the place where hope and exhaustion live side by side, and you can no longer tell them apart. She flew home from that third Seoul trip on a Sunday. By Wednesday, she was back in her studio. New fabrics from Park Jae-won spread across her work table. A new collection taking shape on her mood board. Nello was growing in a way that demanded more of her every week. New stockists reaching out, a feature request from a major fashion platform, wholesale inquiries from London, and Accra that 6 months ago would have felt like a dream and now felt like Tuesday. She threw herself into all of it. That was what she did when the other parts of her life felt unstable. She built. She created. She channeled everything that had nowhere clean to go into the work, and the work always absorbed it without complaint. Minjun called every day that week. She picked up every time. The calls were good. Easy. He was attentive and present on the phone in a way that made it genuinely difficult to hold onto the stone in her chest when she was actually talking to him. He asked about the new collection. He remembered details she had mentioned in passing 2 calls ago. He made her laugh.
He said her name in that way.
But he did not book a flight. A week passed. Then 2. Then a month. He did not book a flight. She stopped counting after the 6th week because counting was making her into a version of herself she did not recognize and did not want to become, a woman sitting by a window waiting to be chosen. She had never been that woman. She was not going to start now. But the exhaustion was real. And it was growing. It was Amara who first said the thing out loud. They were at Nello's apartment on a Saturday evening. No occasion. Just the comfortable ritual of 2 women who had been friends long enough to exist in each other's spaces without needing a reason. Amara was on the couch with her legs tucked under her. Nello was on the floor against the coffee table, sketch pad in her lap, pencil moving slowly over a neckline she couldn't quite get right. You seem far away, Amara said. I'm right here, Nello said. Physically, Amara said. Yeah. Nello looked up from the sketch pad. Amara was watching her with that expression. The one that meant she had been holding something for a while and had decided tonight was the night to put it down.
Talk to me, Amara said.
Nello set the pencil down, looked at her sketch, looked at the ceiling, looked at her hands. I'm tired, Amara, she said quietly. Of the brand? Never. She paused. Of the other thing? Amara said nothing. Let the silence do what it needed to do. I keep telling myself to be patient, Nello said. I keep telling myself he came to Lagos and that meant something and he loves me and love is enough and just give it more time. She exhaled slowly. But I have been giving it more time since we were married. I gave it more time during the marriage. I gave it more time after Seoul. I have been the one on the plane, Amara. Every single time. And I understand his world. I genuinely do. But understanding something doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Amara was quiet for a moment. What do you need? She asked. Nello shook her head slowly. I don't know. I need one night where I'm not thinking about this. Where I'm not measuring or waiting or trying to be patient about something that is making me feel like I'm disappearing. Amara looked at her for a long moment. Then, carefully, that guy Michael Damsey has been asking about you. Nello looked at her. He's not asking me to marry him, Amara said quickly.
He just wants to take you to dinner.
He's been asking for months, and you keep saying no, and I'm not saying say yes because of Minjun, I'm saying say yes because you deserve one evening where someone is putting in the effort right in front of you instead of promising it from another continent. Nello said nothing.
One dinner, Amara said.
Just to breathe. Just to remember that you are a whole, beautiful, extraordinary woman who deserves to be shown up for. That's all. Nello looked at her sketch pad, at the unfinished neckline, at the life she had built stitch by stitch with her own 2 hands. She thought about the stone in her chest. She thought about the 6th week of not counting. She thought about the word soon glowing on her phone screen from a distance that never seemed to close. One dinner, she said finally. That's it. Amara nodded, said nothing else. Smart enough to know when to stop talking. Michael Damsey was not a bad man. That was the thing Nello would come back to later. In the bathroom mirror of his apartment on a morning she had not planned for, when she needed something to hold on to that wasn't entirely damning of herself. He was not a bad man. He was Lagos-born. Sharp. Funny in the easy, uncomplicated way of someone who had never needed to protect himself from his own warmth. He worked in the design industry, textile sourcing, and creative direction, which was how their paths had crossed 3 months earlier at a trade event Nello had attended for the brand. They had talked for 20 minutes about fabric suppliers, and she had found him genuinely interesting, and then Minjun had called, and she had stepped away, and that had been the end of it. Until he started asking Amara about her. She had said no twice. Then a 3rd time. Then she had stopped saying anything because saying no required engaging with a question, and she did not want to engage with any question that was not Minjun. But here she was. Friday evening. A restaurant in Lekki that was warm and well-designed and full of the kind of easy Lagos energy she had been missing, without realizing it. Michael across the table, relaxed, present, asking her questions, and actually waiting for the answers. No phone on the table. No conversations that stopped when she walked in. No carefully managed portions of himself being rationed out across a distance. Just a man. At a table. Showing up. She had not realized how much she had missed the simple, uncomplicated version of that until she was sitting inside it. They talked about work, about the industry, about her next collection and his sourcing contacts and a Korean fabric dealer they apparently had in common. She filed that detail away, without fully processing it. The conversation was easy, easier than it had any right to be. She was on her 2nd drink when her phone lit up on the table. Minjun.
She looked at it.
Michael glanced at the screen, then back at her. Said nothing. No pressure. Just waited. She turned the phone face down. She told herself she would call him back later. That she deserved this one evening. That later was fine. That Minjun of all people did not get to make her feel guilty for one dinner after 9 months of being the only one who ever got on a plane. She picked up her drink. She did not call back later. 1 drink became 3. The restaurant became somewhere else. The evening became the kind that moves faster than you intend when you are running from something you have not admitted you are running from. And somewhere in the middle of a night, she was not fully present for, because the one person she was always present for was on the other side of the world, not booking a flight. She made a decision her body would regret before her eyes were fully open the next morning. Hey, before we go any further, I need to hear from you. Do you think Nello made the wrong decision? Or do you think Minjun left her no choice? And if you were Amara that night on the couch, what would you have told her? Is Nello right to be scared of a repeat of the past, or is she being inconsiderate and impatient? Drop your answer in the comments right now. We read every single one. And if you are watching this for the first time, hit that subscribe button, because what happens next, you are absolutely not ready for. Now let's get back in. The restaurant became somewhere else around 10 p.m. Michael had suggested a rooftop bar he knew in Victoria Island. Easy, no pressure, just good music and a better view of Lagos at night. She had said yes because saying goodnight meant going home to an apartment that would be quiet in the particular way that had been making her chest tight for weeks. She was not ready for that quiet yet. The rooftop was beautiful. Legos spread out below them in all its loud, illuminated glory, the kind of view that reminded you why people loved this city even when it exhausted them. The music was low and unhurried. The air was warm the way Lagos air always was at night, carrying that particular mix of ocean and generator smoke and something sweet she could never quite name. Michael was easy company. That was the honest truth of it. He did not require anything complicated from her. He talked and she listened and she talked and he listened, and nobody was managing anything or protecting anything or carefully rationing themselves out in measured portions.
It was just easy.
She had forgotten what easy felt like. Her third drink arrived. She looked at it for a moment, thought briefly about her phone in her bag, thought about the missed calls she had not yet returned, thought about Minjun in his penthouse in Seoul. What time was it there? What was he doing? Was he wondering where she was? She picked up the drink. She stopped thinking. That was the decision. Not the one that came later. This one. The deliberate choosing to stop thinking, to stop calculating, to stop being the woman who was always managing the distance between herself and her own feelings. Just for one night. Just for a few hours. Just to breathe. The problem with deciding to stop thinking is that it works. The drinks helped. The music helped. Michael's uncomplicated warmth helped. The Lagos night helped. And somewhere between the third drink and whatever came after it, she stopped being Nella Williams, who was exhausted and heartsore and tired of being the one who always showed up, and became just a woman, on a rooftop, in her city, present for the first time in months. She did not check her phone again. She did not think about Seoul. She did not think about anything at all. She did not remember deciding to leave with him. That was not an excuse. She knew that. Adults made decisions even when those decisions assembled themselves quietly from a series of smaller ones that each seemed harmless on their own. The yes to the second location. The yes to the third drink. The yes to staying when the music changed and the night deepened, and Michael looked at her with an expression that was asking something without any pressure attached to the asking. She had said yes. She remembered that part clearly enough. What she did not remember clearly was the drive, or arriving, or much of anything after the rooftop that was not filtered through the particular soft blur of a night she had spent mostly somewhere else inside her own head. And then she was in a bed that was not hers. And the room was unfamiliar. And the ceiling was unfamiliar. And without thinking, without intending to, her hand moved across the sheets toward the warmth beside her the way it had done 1,000 mornings in another life. Automatic. Already certain of what it was reaching for before she was fully awake. Her fingers found a shoulder that was not his. She went completely still. And then everything came back. Not slowly. Not in pieces. All at once. The way a wave doesn't ask permission. The Uber moving through Victoria Island. The restaurant in Lekki. The rooftop. The drinks coming one after another because the alternative was sitting with feelings she had been sitting with for 9 months, and she was exhausted. The phone face down on the table. Minjun's name glowing on the screen, and her hand turning it over before she could change her mind. She sat up slowly. The room settled around her. Unfamiliar walls. Unfamiliar furniture. The breathing of a man beside her who was still asleep and entirely unburdened by the weight of what she was now fully carrying. She reached for her clothes quietly, carefully, the way you move when you are trying not to disturb something you have already disturbed beyond recovery. Michael stirred. Opened his eyes, looked at her with an expression that was still soft with sleep and completely unaware of the storm happening inside her chest. "Hey," he said. "You okay?" "I'm fine," she said. "Go back to sleep." She moved to the bathroom before he could say another word, closed the door behind her, ran the cold tap, put both hands on the edge of the sink, and looked at herself in the mirror for a long, quiet, honest moment. She looked like a woman who had made a decision she already regretted. Because she was. The shame was not the loud, dramatic kind. It was the quiet kind. The kind that sits very still in your chest and simply asks, "What did you do?" in a voice that already knows the answer. She knew what she had done. More importantly, she knew why. And the why was the part that was going to be the most difficult to carry out of this bathroom and into the rest of her life. She splashed cold water on her face, reached for her phone on the bathroom shelf, looked at the screen. 3 missed calls. Minjun. All from last night. All during the hours she had been on a rooftop in Victoria Island turning her phone face down and telling herself she deserved one evening. She stared at his name for a long moment. Then she opened her messages and typed one word to Amara.
Call me.
Her phone rang 40 seconds later. Talk to me, Amara said immediately. No preamble. No good morning.
Just talk to me.
Nello sat down on the edge of the bathtub,
Pulled her knees to her chest.
and told her everything in the quiet, measured voice of someone reporting on a situation they have not yet fully processed. When she finished, the line was silent for a moment. Then Amara said, How do you feel right now? Terrible, Nello said immediately. About what specifically? About all of it. No, Amara said carefully. Be specific. What is the feeling? Nello pressed her lips together, looked at the bathroom tiles, at the cold tap, still running, at the door between her and a man whose last name she had to think twice to remember. I feel like I did something that had nothing to do with him, she said quietly. Like he was just there, and I was somewhere else the entire time. And that's not fair to him, and it's not, she stopped. It's not who I am. And who are you? Amara said. Silence. I'm someone who is in love with Minjun Kong, she said. So quietly, it was almost just breath.
Still.
After everything. After all the distance and the waiting and the one-sided plane tickets.
Still.
Amara was quiet for a moment. Then, that shame you're feeling right now? That is your answer. All of it. You don't want to move on. You don't want Michael Damsey or anyone else. You want Min Jun to show up the way you have been showing up. And until that happens, or until you decide it is never going to happen, there is no in-between for you. It's either him or it's no one. And you need to stop pretending there is another option, because moments like last night are what happen when you try to force one. Nello said nothing, because there was nothing to say to the truth when it was delivered that cleanly. Go home, Amara said gently. Shower, eat something, and then figure out what you want to say to him. She went home. She did not figure out what to say to Minjun. Not that morning. Not that afternoon. She moved through her apartment like something that had been slightly rearranged and not quite put back correctly. She made tea she didn't drink. She opened her sketch pad and stared at a blank page for 20 minutes without putting pencil to paper. She thought about calling him. She picked up the phone 3 times. Put it down 3 times. Because what did you say? How did you begin that conversation? How did you explain 3 missed calls and a silence that stretched from Friday night through Saturday morning without telling the whole truth? And how did you tell the whole truth without detonating something that was already fragile? She did not call. She told herself she would figure it out tomorrow. Tomorrow became 2 days. 2 days of messages from Minjun that she answered briefly and carefully. Nothing in them that confirmed or denied. Nothing that gave him a thread to pull. She was not lying to him. She was just not yet ready for the conversation that telling the truth required. She did not know that the conversation had already been decided for her. It happened on a Monday afternoon. Michael Damsey posted a picture. Nothing dramatic about it on its surface. A casual Lagos evening photo. Good lighting, good company, the kind of thing people posted every day without thinking twice. Nello was in it. Side profile. Laughing at something. Beautiful in the uncomplicated way she always was without trying. He tagged the location. Tagged the restaurant. He did not tag her. He did not know her handle. But her face was there, and Lagos was there, and the date was there, and that was enough. 3 time zones away in Seoul, Minjun Kang's most trusted lieutenant, a sharp, quiet man named Suhan who noticed everything and forgot nothing, was sitting across a boardroom table from a Korean fabric dealer closing a deal that had been 3 months in negotiation. The dealer's phone was on the table. Suhan's eyes moved to it the way they moved to everything. Automatically, professionally, without drawing attention to themselves. The screen lit up with Michael Damsey's post. Because the dealer followed Michael Damsey. Because Michael Damsey did business with the dealer. Because the dealer was Park Jae-won. Nello's Park Jae-won. Suhan looked at the screen for exactly 2 seconds. Long enough to see the face. Long enough to place it. Long enough to connect what he was seeing to the Friday night 3 days ago when he had been standing outside Minjun's office and heard his phone ring 3 times without being answered. He picked up his own phone under the table. Took a screenshot. Sent it to one contact. The message above the image said only, "Do you know about this?" Minjun was in the middle of a call when the message came through. He finished the call, set the phone down on his desk, picked it up again, opened the message from Suhan, looked at the image. He was very still for a very long time. The kind of still that in his world meant something was being processed at a level below the surface that would only become visible when he decided to let it. He looked at the date stamp on the post. Friday evening. The same Friday evening his calls had gone unanswered. The same Friday evening her messages had come back brief and slightly different in texture from their usual warmth. The same Friday evening he had told himself she was probably tired, probably working, probably just needed space.
He set the phone face down on the desk,
Stood up slowly, walked to the window of his penthouse and looked at Seoul below him, the city that bowed to him, the empire he had built and maintained and chosen again and again over every other thing in his life, including the one thing that had ever made any of it feel worth having. He stood there for a long time. He was not angry at her. That was the thing he had to sit with carefully before he let himself feel anything else. He understood cause and effect. He understood that 9 months of distance and unkept promises and one-sided plane tickets had consequences. He understood that he had looked at what she needed and chosen his empire over it repeatedly, and that people, even the most patient, most loving, most extraordinary people, eventually stopped waiting and started surviving. He understood all of that. But the man underneath the understanding, the one that lived below the composure and the control and the carefully managed stillness, that man was not interested in understanding right now. That man was already looking at flights to Lagos. He turned from the window. "Suhan," he said into the intercom. "Sir. Clear my week." A pause. All of it. All of it. Another pause. Shorter this time. Because Suhan had worked for Minjun Kong long enough to know that certain instructions did not come with room for follow-up questions. "Yes, sir," he said. Minjun picked up his phone. Looked at Nello's name on his screen. Did not call her. Not yet. He had things to say to her that required him to be in the same room. He had things to show her that a phone call could not carry. And he had been the reason she was on that plane 3 times. It was long past time he learned what it felt like to be the one doing the traveling. Nello was in her studio when her phone rang. Tuesday afternoon. She was elbow deep in the new collection, fabric pinned to her dress form, scissors in her hand, the particular focused silence of a woman who was using work the way she always used it when everything else was too loud to sit with. She had not yet figured out what to say to Minjun. She had decided she would call him tonight, that she would find the words somehow, that she owed him a real conversation even if she did not yet know what shape it was going to take. Her phone rang. She looked at the screen expecting his name. It was Amara. She picked up. "Hey, Nello." Amara's voice was the particular kind of careful that immediately made her set the scissors down. "Are you home?" "Studio."
"Why?"
"What happened?" "Nothing happened. Just a pause." "Are you sitting down?" "Amara." "Minjun is in Lagos." The dress form in front of her did not move. The fabric did not move. The entire studio went very still around her in the way that rooms do when the information inside them becomes suddenly too large for the space. "What?" she said. "He landed this morning."
"Ikoyi."
"Same hotel as before." Another pause. "Nello, he didn't tell anyone he was coming." Temi from the front desk recognized one of his men and called her cousin, who called. "Amara." "Yeah." "How long have you known?" A pause that lasted slightly too long. "Amara." 2 hours, Amara said. "I needed to figure out how to tell you." Nello sat down slowly on the stool beside her work table. Put one hand flat on the fabric surface in front of her. Felt the texture of it under her palm. Concentrated on that for a moment. He was here. He had come. Not because she had asked him to. Not because a supplier meeting had brought him. Not because it was convenient or scheduled or fitted neatly into the architecture of his empire. He had simply come, the way she had always needed him to. "Nello," Amara said quietly. "He doesn't know that you know he's here. His people haven't reached out yet. You have maybe an hour before he calls you." "I know," she said. "What are you going to do?" She looked at the dress form in front of her, at the half-constructed garment pinned carefully to it. At the studio walls covered in mood boards and sketches, and the physical evidence of a woman who had built something extraordinary from the rubble of a love that had never fully let her go. "I don't know yet," she said honestly. She hung up. She sat in the studio for 23 minutes without moving. And then her phone rang. Min-jun. She looked at it for 2 full rings. Then she picked up. "You're in Lagos," she said. "I am," he said. The same words. The same exchange. Almost word for word from 18 months ago when he had surprised her after the collection launch. Except this time, everything underneath the words was different. Heavier. More complicated. Carrying things that the last time had not yet happened. "You didn't tell me you were coming," she said. A pause. "No," he said. "I didn't." She waited. "I need to see you," he said. "Can I come to the studio?" She looked around the space. At everything she had built. At the woman she had become in the time since she had last let him stand in this room. "Give me an hour," she said. He arrived exactly 60 minutes later.
She had not changed.
Had not tidied the studio beyond what it naturally was. She had made tea she wasn't going to drink and stood by the window watching the Lagos street below and tried to organize herself internally the way she always did. It was not working the way it usually did. The knock came. She opened the door. He was in a dark coat, dark shirt underneath. That angular face and those steady eyes and the single line of Korean letters beneath his ear that she had traced with her finger more times than she could count in another life. He looked not tired exactly, but like a man who had been carrying something heavy for long enough that the weight had become visible. He looked at her for a moment. "You look," he started. "Don't," she said quietly.
He stopped.
She stepped back to let him in. He entered slowly, did what he always did, moved through the space with that particular attention of his, taking it in, reading it the way he read everything. He stopped in front of the mood board for the new collection, looked at it for a moment. Then he turned to face her. "I owe you an explanation," he said. "You owe me more than that," she said. Still quiet. Still no anger in her voice. Just truth. He nodded. "I know." She folded her arms. Not defensively. Just holding herself together in the particular way of a woman who had decided she was going to say everything she needed to say and was not going to cry while doing it. "Why are you here, Min-jun?" she said. "And I need the real answer. Not the one that sounds right. The real one." He looked at her steadily. "I saw something that made me understand what I was about to lose." The air in the studio shifted slightly. She held his gaze. "What did you see?" He reached into his coat pocket, set his phone on the work table between them. The screenshot from Suhan still open on the screen. She looked at it. Then she looked at him. The silence that followed was the most complicated silence she had ever stood inside. Because it contained everything. The night, Michael Damsey, the rooftop, the drinks, the 3 missed calls, the shame in the bathroom mirror, the 2 days of carefully managed messages. All of it sitting on that work table between them in a single screenshot. "Min-jun," she started. "You don't have to explain," he said. "Yes, I do." "Nello."
No.
Her voice was firm. "I am going to say this. Because I need you to understand what happened, and I need you to understand why, and I need you to hear it from me, and not from a picture someone sent you." She exhaled slowly. "I went to dinner. I was exhausted, and I was lonely, and I was tired of being the only one who ever got on a plane, and I went to dinner because Amara said I needed one night of not thinking about us, and I thought I could manage that."
She paused.
"I couldn't manage it," she said. "The night went further than I intended, and I have been sick about it since I woke up the next morning. Not because of what it was, because of what it wasn't, because it wasn't you, because it was never going to be you. Because I could be in a room with 100 men who showed up exactly right, and every single one of them would still not be you, and I have known that for months, and I kept hoping that you would figure out what that meant before I broke." Her voice held. She had promised herself it would hold. "I broke," she said simply. The studio was very quiet. Min-jun had not moved, had not looked away, had absorbed every word with the full stillness of a man who understood that this was not the moment for interruption or defense or anything other than listening. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he crossed the room. Slowly, deliberately, giving her every opportunity to step back. She did not step back. He stopped in front of her.
close.
That nearness. That specific air between them that had always been different from the air everywhere else. "You only come when you think you're losing me," she said. Her voice was steady, but something in it was fraying at the very edges. "Every time. The hospital.
Now.
You only move when the ground shifts." She looked up at him. "When does it stop being a reaction and start being a choice?" Something moved through his face.
Profound.
Unguarded. The kind of expression she had seen from him maybe 4 times in all the years she had known him. "It starts now," he said quietly. "If you'll let it." "Minjun." "I have been choosing my empire," he said.
For years.
"Over everything. Over us during the marriage. Over the promises I made in Seoul. Over the 3 trips you made that I should have made myself." His jaw tightened. "I told myself it was necessary. That you understood. That love was enough to hold something together that I wasn't putting any structural weight on."
He paused.
"I was wrong. And I am not standing here asking you to forget that. I am standing here asking you to let me prove that I finally understand what it actually costs." She looked at him. This man. This impossible, infuriating, devastating man who had the specific and singular ability to make her feel more seen and more frustrated and more loved than anyone who had ever existed in her life. "I'm not okay," she said. Her voice cracked on the last word. "Just slightly. Just enough." "I know," he said softly. I'm not standing here telling you everything is fine, because it isn't. I'm not the same as I was in Seoul. That hotel pavement version of me who said she wasn't closing the door. She hadn't spent 9 months being the only one who showed up yet." "I know," he said again. "So, what are you going to do about it?" He reached up slowly. Both hands. Cupped her face the way he had learned she needed. Fully. Completely. No part of her left unsteady. She felt her eyes fill. She had promised herself they wouldn't. "I'm going to stay," he said. "For as long as you'll have me here. And when I go back, I am going to do what I should have done 9 months ago. And when you come to Seoul, it is going to be because you want to, not because you are the only one carrying this." He looked at her with those eyes, dark and still, and no longer carrying anything heavy alone. "And I am going to spend whatever time it takes showing you that I understand the difference between loving you and choosing you, because I know now that they are not the same thing." The first tear came. She had known it would eventually. He caught it with his thumb before it finished falling. Gentle.
Certain.
She pressed her face into his hand for a moment. Just a moment. Just long enough to feel what it felt like to be held by the specific person her body had been reaching for across every distance and every wrong room and every morning that was not his. Then she pulled back slightly. Looked at him. "I need time," she said. "I'll be here." She almost smiled. Almost. "You say that now," she said softly. And there it was, that pull at the corner of his mouth. That almost smile she had cataloged and memorized and missed more than she had given herself permission to admit. "I know," he said. "That's why I'm going to have to show you instead." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she stepped back. Just slightly. Just enough to breathe. He stayed in Lagos for 10 days. Not 2 weeks this time. 10 days. But they were different from the first visit in ways that mattered. There was no performance to them. No golden rooftop dinners designed to remind her what they could be. No carefully curated version of himself being presented for her consideration. Just him. In her city. Showing up every day in the ordinary, unglamorous way that real effort actually looks. Driving her to a supplier meeting on a Wednesday morning because she mentioned her car was in the shop. Sitting in the corner of her studio on a Thursday afternoon working quietly on his own calls and emails while she cut patterns, saying nothing, just being present. Cooking badly in her kitchen on a Saturday night and laughing at himself when she took over. Ordinary. Consistent.
There.
She watched him do it. Watched him choose it every day without being asked. Without being reminded. Without needing the ground to shift first. She did not fully soften. She was not ready to fully soften. But something in her chest, that stone that had been settling deeper since the midnight packaging session, shifted. Not gone, but lighter. On his last evening, he sat across from her at her kitchen table. Simple dinner. Lagos night through the window. The city doing its thing below. He looked at her across the table. I have to go back tomorrow, he said.
I know, she said.
I'm coming back in 6 weeks, he said. I've already cleared it. She looked at him. And the time after that, he said, I'm not asking you to stop building your life here. I'm not asking you to wait. I'm asking you to let me come to where you are instead of always making you come to where I am. She held his gaze for a long moment. 6 weeks, she said.
6 weeks, he said.
She looked down at the table, at her hands, at the wrist that had healed completely now, no brace, no bandage, just the faint memory of a rainy night in Seoul that had started all of this. She looked back up at him. Okay, she said. He reached across the table. She let him take her hand. Outside Lagos was loud and golden and entirely indifferent to the small, enormous thing happening in a kitchen on the 3rd floor of an apartment building in Surulere. Two people who had loved each other through divorce and distance and one-sided plane tickets and a night she would always regret, and a screenshot that had finally made a man understand what he was about to permanently lose, sitting across a small table, holding hands, trying again. Not perfectly, not without damage, but trying. And sometimes, just sometimes, that is exactly what love looks like when it finally decides to grow up. Some love stories are about finding the right person. This one was always about two right people learning, slowly, painfully, at considerable cost to both of them, how to be right for each other at the same time. Nella Williams did not get a fairy tale. She got something harder and more honest than that. She got a man who loved her imperfectly and had to be brought to the edge of losing her before he understood the difference between presence and proximity. And she got to be the woman who did not collapse while waiting, who built an empire with her own hands and never once let her heartbreak become her identity. Minjun Kong did not get absolution. He got a chance. One more chance earned not by words this time, but by 10 days of ordinary, consistent showing up in a city that was not his, for a woman who had every right to close that door permanently and had chosen, again, still, stubbornly, to leave it open. Whether he would keep showing up, whether she would fully let him back in, whether love that had survived this much could survive the ordinary demands of two people with two worlds that would never fully overlap. That was the story still being written.
Now, we want to hear from you.
Do you think Nello should have told Minjun the full truth about that night, or was what she told him enough? And do you think Minjun showing up in Lagos and those 10 days of effort actually changed anything, or is this just another version of the same cycle? And the most important question of all, does a love like this deserve to survive? Or has it cost both of them too much already? Drop your answers in the comments. We read every single one, and we genuinely want to know what you think. If this story moved you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it today, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode. These two are not done yet, and neither are we.